Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
8:07 on WMAL. Brian Neiman, Brian Wilson with you, and a happy Wednesday morning to you. We are pleased to be joined by Michael Barone, senior political analyst for the Washington Examiner. It's always great to talk to you. Thanks for getting up early for us, Michael.
Well, it's good to be with you.
All right, now that Romney has clinched the delegates, we're over that magical...
Suspense is gone.
Isn't it? I know you were up late waiting to see the results come in from Texas.
From the 13th congressional district, yeah.
Okay, so what do you make? Well, let's start with Romney first. All right, it is a done deal. I know a couple of weeks ago you wrote a article about maybe he needs to go vanilla on vanilla when it comes to VP pick.
Well, I cited the case of Bill Clinton, who selected Al Gore, who was from the same part of the country, adjoining a southern border state, considered to be a moderate on many issues, complimented Clinton because he had experience in foreign affairs and defense as a member of Congress and somebody interested in the relevant committees. It was a successful ticket. It underlined their youth, next generation, moderate kind of Democratic candidate message that they wanted to deliver. And I think you might see the same thing if Mitt Romney picked another Midwestern white guy. It's, I guess, considered to be kind of bad to be white in some quarters, but Rob Portman, the senator from Ohio, Paul Ryan, the congressman from Wisconsin and chairman of the House Budget Committee, I think would fill that bill. Romney's message is he's got to turn the economy and turn our fiscal picture around and make some basic changes to get our entitlement programs on a trajectory where they can be sustained rather than where they're going to fall off a cliff like Greece. And Portman or Ryan, who have a lot of expertise in that area, would underline that message.
Well, hold it a second. So you're saying Portman might be good, and he would also bring you Ohio, which is a must-win state.
It would be. He's a guy who carried at 57-39 in 2010.
All right. So here's my larger question.
Yep.
The old saying is, what you need in a lineup is you need a little steak and a little sizzle. But here you got steak and steak. Will it work? Will it sell? Will it inspire the electorate?
Well, I think that you don't really need to inspire. I think there's a certain difference between Democrats and Republicans here as you watch them over the years. Democrats like their presidents to be philosopher kings. They want them to be all things to all people. We heard encomiums 8 years ago about how John Kerry was some kind of a Renaissance man or whatever. Republicans subscribe to a more mechanical view. As the late columnist Joseph Alsop once said, politicians are like toilet fixtures. It is enough that they serve the intended function. They need not be beautiful. I think that Republican voters and those potentially voting for the Republican candidate are looking less for inspiration and more for getting a job done.
All right, so what do you make of Ted Cruz having a runoff Tea Party candidate in Texas last night?
Well, Ted Cruz, I've known over the years. Ted Cruz is, he's not just a Tea Party candidate. He's not a guy that arose from nowhere. He'd been Solicitor General of the state, argued 3 Supreme Court cases successfully for the state of Texas, and so he's had a public career. Yeah, 45-33. Adapting the old kind of rules from Democratic primaries when a favorite is held to a 12-point margin or a 10-point, 11-point margin, as seems to be the case here, 45-34, 11 points. He's in real danger in the runoff, and I think it's a race that can go either way. Ted Cruz is campaigning as a guy who will fight for conservative principles, and he's arguing that David Dewhurst, who's been the lieutenant governor for 10 years, is a squish. Once considered supporting a state income tax, which of course is heresy in Texas. Pardon me. Dewhurst has been running a tough negative campaign against Cruz and spent a lot of time saying that, Cruz was supporting various, I think, Chinese causes because his law firm was representing a Chinese company in some case. I may have gotten the facts slightly mangled, but the idea was that Cruz is accountable for something that one of the other 1,000 lawyers at this law firm is working on. I think that's a stretch, and it's going to be hard to sustain over the last 2 months. If I was advising the Dewhurst campaign, I'd be telling them to do something more along the lines of positive. Here's some conservative things I want to do in Washington.
Silvestre Reyes out. Does that surprise you?
It surprises me a little bit. I mean, basically, you're looking at, this is a district that basically coextensive with El Paso, or just a part of El Paso, a big town on the Texas border, out in the most desolate desert. And, that was a very narrow race in the sense that the other candidate, Beto O'Rourke, almost got involved in a runoff. I suspect that's a case where the member didn't get back to Washington too much. I mean, when Nancy Pelosi, after the 06 Democratic takeover, decided that she would shove aside Jane Harman, who'd been ranking Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, Jane Harman was not radical enough for her, and put in Silvestre Reyes, who didn't really have much of a background in there. His career as a border control guy. He was a federal agent on the border. And so he was put in a position where he was hard to operate, but it sounds to me like he didn't get back to El Paso. It's a long couple of flights,
It sure is.
Yeah, I mean, you go, if you want to take, the Texarkana to El Paso, the two ends of Texas, that's more than 800 miles, okay? That's a little farther than from Washington to Baltimore.
I should point out that Silvestre Reyes is a Democrat losing. Is that another anti-incumbent message, though? We've seen President struggle in some of these primaries. I know that granted it's West Virginia and Kentucky, but losing to, or not losing to, but
we didn't see a big phenomenon of that in Texas. One has to say the president got 88% of the Democratic vote there, rather, but 2.5 times as many people voted in the Republican primary as the Democratic primary. I think there's some anti-incumbent numbers in here. You can see some races here where the incumbents are held down in some Texas Republican incumbents held down to, 2/3 of the vote by one candidate
right.
who didn't attract much attention or spend much money. That says to me that, that's a protest vote. Usually when most election years, when you get a situation like that, the incumbent ends up with 80%, 75 to 80%.
All right.
Some incumbents did in Texas, but some of them fell short of that, and I'd be doing a little more constituency service if I was them.
We're out of time, Michael. I want a one-word answer to this question.
Yes.
You ready?
No.
The most important, the most important state that Mitt Romney must win in the electoral math.
Florida.
All right. You heard it right. So you don't think they'll go with Rubio?
That's not. No, I think he's going to go more the Rob Portman route.
All right. Thanks a lot, Michael. Good to have you.
Great to have you as always. We appreciate it.